deep in the snow. And you got me talking about what we did yesterday in class that the Knowledge Bowlers were gone for and half of you weren't paying attention for. So the 1912 election is what I'll give you today as your e-learning day assignment. So in this election, we've got 4 people. It's a fatal 4-way, folks, for the American championship. In one corner, we got the Bull Moose Teddy Roosevelt. We've got Mr. Big Boy William Howard Taft. We've got Woodrow Wilson, a.k.a. Woody, and Eugene, I'm totally a socialist, Debs, is the 4th person to round out this match. And we've got Wilson's the Democrat, Roosevelt and Taft are both Republicans at the start of this thing, and Debs is a socialist. This is probably one of the more crowded elections there's ever been. It's really interesting because Teddy Roosevelt was the president for a good 8 years there, and he handpicked Taft to be his replacement. But then as soon as Taft started being president, Roosevelt thought he could do way better. So he comes back, starts dragging his old pal Taft through the press, and they start squabbling for the Republican nomination. In the documentary yesterday, some of the best insults. Roosevelt called Taft, wait for it, a puzzle wit. That's right, he called him a puzzle wit. I can't believe it. It was really, really strong language. And in return, there was a good quote from Taft. I like this one more, though. I called Roosevelt a honeyfuggler. You ain't nothing but a honeyfuggler, son. It rolls off the tongue. And the mudslinging starts between them. You've also got Woodrow Wilson. He was governor of New Jersey, president of Princeton, and learned yesterday in this documentary that he believed God had chosen him to become president. He thought that it was all in the Lord's plan that he became the president. But he didn't have an accent. He's from the North, kind of an uptight fella, super religious. But don't worry, he used to open his campaign events with a limerick. That's right. Just get the crowd laughing hard with those limericks. And then what? What do I say about Debs? Debs was a pretty charismatic figure. Had the riz, folks. Had the socialist riz going for him. But eventually, as the kind of parties settle in on their candidates, the Republicans end up picking Taft because it's kind of interesting. So they pick him because the party bosses, like the old school Republican Party machine, still exists, and they pick Taft. But in the newly created direct primaries, where the voters would choose the candidates, Roosevelt won every single one of those. So it's really interesting to think about what could have happened if people actually got to decide and do things progressively. And obviously now that's what our system is direct primaries to choose political candidates. But Roosevelt gets hosed on that one. And so he has to form a new party, the Progressive Party. Calls it the Bull Moose Party as well. And he is all for this idea of a new nationalism, which is basically using the federal government to help out the American people whenever possible, kind of establish a basic level of care in the country, and make sure everybody has a decent amount to get by with. Taft, he's the incumbent. He does have some progressive ideas, but he's mostly a conservative Republican. And then you've got Woodrow Wilson. He also is trying to do some progressive stuff. He had this idea called the New Freedom Platform, which was also about emphasizing individualism and states' rights and getting rid of monopolies completely. He wanted to just destroy monopolies. Teddy Roosevelt just wanted to bust them up. Taft kind of wanted to bust them just a little bit. And then Debs, the socialist, believed basically in supporting the working class, because that's who he was speaking to, was the workers, the laborers of the country that gave all the wealthy people all that wealth by putting their labor into the economy. So let's see, as things play out here, Roosevelt and Taft start duking it out, and they end up splitting the entire Republican vote, which basically seals the deal for Woodrow Wilson to win by a lot. He got 435 electoral votes. Roosevelt got 88 with 27.4% of the popular vote. And he was the most successful third-party candidate in U.S. history. Taft only got 8 with 23.2% of the vote as well. So he did pretty bad. But Debs did worse, got 0 electoral votes, which is usually how third-party candidates go, but he got 6% of the popular vote, showing that socialist ideas were popular at the time. So we get Woodrow Wilson as president, and Theodore Roosevelt goes back to a life of adventure. He actually goes to the Amazon rainforest, where he almost dies because he's a crazy person. Taft eventually becomes a Supreme Court justice and the chief justice of the Supreme Court, which is the job he always wanted. And Debs, I'm pretty sure he goes to prison at some point. I think he runs for president a couple more times. I think one of the times he actually runs for president from prison. At least that's what my dad told me once. So I'm going to go with that. Let's see, what else about this election is important. So let's just make sure we know what new nationalism is, which is strong federal regulation, social welfare, and direct democracy. That's coming from Teddy Roosevelt. Make sure you know what new freedom was, emphasizing antitrust laws, tariff reduction, because those things aren't good for our economy, and banking reform. Let's see here. Taft, his big deal was economic individualism and limited government intervention. So clearly the most conservative of the options. And Debs wants public ownership of industries and expanded social programs. Teddy Roosevelt actually stole a lot of Debs's ideas to try and take some of his voters away, and it worked. So a lot of these party platforms had a lot of progressive ideas in common. And yeah, it ended up giving us Woodrow Wilson, who had some progressive ideas, obviously oversaw women getting the right to vote, but he also had some racist philosophy and policies as well. He's the guy that showed the movie The Birth of a Nation to the White House crowd, had a special screening, and then, of course, the plot of that movie is after Reconstruction or during Reconstruction in the South, things are crazy, and there's a hero that's needed. And who is there to save the day? Oh, the Ku Klux Klan. And Wilson saw this and said, "That was art. I loved it. Best movie ever." So yeah, that's not a good look. But we'll look some more at him tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm also going to focus on we'll talk about what they got successfully through Congress and passed for their domestic policy and how American foreign policy changes during the progressive era. So we'll cover those things tomorrow in class. I'll post a review as well because we're going to quiz on this stuff on Friday. Friday. So got to get through this so we can move on. I don't want to get any further behind. So Wouldn't hurt to look at the notes of everything if you're just so bored today. I'm sure other teachers gave you a lot more. So, that's the election of 1912 in a nutshell. And I'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your day off. Bye-bye.